Welcome to Living in Chicago, the podcast where I get to interview real Chicagoans about the neighborhoods that they live, work, and play in. My name is Jake Lyons. I'll be your host. And in this episode, I interview Kerry Bowler, who is a veteran of the event space industry from various restaurants and other top notch venue spaces where one can reserve some space and throw a great party. She is currently with Smith and Wollensky, who is undergoing some really exciting renovations from the sounds of it that will enable them to host, even bigger and better events and parties going forward. Smith and Wollensky, of course, is a famous steakhouse, which is on the bottom of the Marina Towers, which you might know as the big corn in the cob buildings, which we go into a lot of the cool history and whatnot of that. Kerry lives in the Lakeshore East neighborhood, which kind of goes by a couple different names. If you look at it on Google Maps, they know it by the New East Side. Some other places I see to it refer to as the Near East Side. Lakeshore East is what I'm going to call it for now. Lakeshore East, if you're unfamiliar, is a subsection of the Loop, and it's kind of the furthest northeast part of the Loop, over by Navy Pier, just south of the river, and just inland from the lake. So you have Lakeshore Drive right there to the east. You have Randolph Street to the south. You have Wacker to the north, and then Michigan Avenue to the west. And it's a really cool neighborhood. It's got a lot of really exciting high-rise buildings, both old and new. There's some new developments going on there right now that are, in various stages of being built that, have very significant impacts on the aesthetic of the Chicago skyline. Almost all for the better. I can't think of anything. It's not like there's anything that I would say is taking away from it by any means. I mean, there's all if a building like that is getting approved, it's usually going to be a pretty good project, and it's going to look really cool. And she lives in the Aqua Tower, which has all kinds of really cool things going on, and historical in its own ways that we get into. The Lakeshore East neighborhood is kind of like this hidden little gem. It's like they've accomplished this crazy feat of having some privacy in the middle of just all this, the hubbub of the heart of downtown Chicago. I mean, they have kind of like a semi-private park down there that anybody can get to it, but unless you had a specific reason to go there, you wouldn't. So it's basically only for the people that live in these, surrounding buildings. And then even beyond that, you have Millennium Park just to the south of you. And then just a little bit more than that, you have Grant Park right there. Obviously, you have the lake, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just all these amenities, all these great restaurants. I mean, it's, you're right in the middle of downtown Chicago. Like if that's the kind of vibe that you're going for, it's a hard area to beat. So look forward to you hearing more from Kerry. She is an expert in the area, and she's been in some other parts of downtown Chicago as well. So can kind of compare and contrast different little subsections like Streeterville and places like that. And, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into our interview with Kerry Bowler so that she can tell you what it's like to live in the Lakeshore East neighborhood of Chicago. All right, joined here today by Kerry Bowler. We got through some technical difficulties, and now we are here. We're ready to have a great interview. Kerry Bowler is originally, let's see if I get this straight. So, born in the Beverly neighborhood, grew up mostly in Lincolnwood, spent some time in some other places. A veteran of the events space game, currently with Smith and Wollensky, which is a high-end steakhouse in downtown Chicago. She spent some time in Streeterville, Gold Coast, and currently is in the Aqua Tower, which we will get into in some detail, I would imagine. That's 225 North Columbus, right? That's the
Right.
address of
Yeah.
that. Okay. Normally, I don't, when we talk to people in other neighborhoods, we don't really like to give like exact addresses. But in this case, I mean, the buildings in the area that you live in are basically small towns unto themselves. So
Yeah.
I think it's okay in this area. And I'm not going to give, obviously no like unit numbers or anything like that. But yeah. So thank you for coming on. Did I get that? Did I get that somewhat correct?
Yeah. So the Aqua building is in Lakeshore East, which you're right. The whole Lakeshore
Mhm.
East, it's, I don't know, 30 buildings maybe surrounding this beautiful park right on the lake and the river, technically. So that's its own community. I've been there for 2 years. Part of that, I lived across the river in Streeterville, also in a high rise.
Mhm. What has drawn you to this area?
Well, Streeterville kind of fell from the sky, in my opinion. I used to work at Navy Pier for several restaurants and venues. I was looking to walk to work, and it turned out to be great. The neighborhood was very up and coming. They were building tons of new buildings there, which the one I left was brand new. It was only 4 years old, called Moment. So the difference from that to where I was previously was the Gold Coast is all the buildings are new and the amenities are gigantic, and they're all
Hmm.
competing on who has the best amenities. So
Yeah.
I kind of went with that too. Where did I feel safe? That building was a little bit smaller. It was only 45 stories. No, at the Aqua, it's 85. So it's
Hmm.
basically double of everything, double security, double door people. But the building, Aqua, is a mixed use building. So it's condos on the top, rental in the middle, and then the Brandon Blue Hotel on the bottom. So we share
Hmm.
the amenities. We have a junior Olympic outdoor pool, outdoor spa pool, outdoor kids pool, private running track, indoor lap pool, indoor spa pool, and a gigantic gym, and then other various workspaces throughout the building. Radisson Blue has a great restaurant and also a Starbucks. So
Hmm.
there are days when you don't have to leave the building.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, and I know there's a few buildings in that area that are a similar setup to where, there's a hotel in the building plus long-term residential units. And so is it like this where you get to kind of benefit from some of the services that the hotel has, like, I don't know, turn down service and different things like that. I'm sure you have to pay extra for some of these things, but is
Um,
that kind of a potential part of the deal or no?
Not really. There's corporate housing in my building, which they can sign on for any of that. I don't think the
Okay.
condos need it, but they might have their own concierge. But we have two door people full time, 24 hours a day that handle the entrance from one lobby, the entrance to the rental side and the entrance to the condo side. And then the hotel obviously has a completely separate entrance that we can all cut through. So
Okay.
I know if you're out at the pool, you can order drinks and food right to your lounge tier if you want to.
Okay.
But most people bring their own stuff
Yeah.
down there because why? It's a lot cheaper. But yeah, they do try to make it kind of special, and they have lots of events and kind of social stuff for the tenants as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're not familiar with that exact building, which many of the people watching or listening won't be, I mean, it's a absolute marvel of a building. It's like no other building you've probably ever seen. The design of it is well, first of all, the architect of it, Jeannie Gang, right? I think it's Jeannie, right? Yeah. Jeannie Gang is renowned, pioneer female architect. She has really put her stamp on the Chicago skyline in a lot of very, very massive, significant ways. And this building in particular was kind of her first big splash, if I'm not mistaken. I mean,
Yeah,
anytime you take Chicago is famous for the riverboat architecture tours. If anybody ever, I always tell people, if you have 3 hours and only 3 hours to spend in the city of Chicago, and you want one a recommendation for just one thing to do is the riverboat architecture tour, hands down, not even a
I
question.
agree.
And they will, yeah, this is something that they'll spend a solid 5 minutes on, every single time because of its significance. And yeah, just the design of it is maybe it helped me out a little bit because I remember, they say a lot in those tours, and some of it kind of it doesn't, I don't retain everything. Like the design of it, it looks like waves, and
Yeah,
it's something like it was designed to be like shady at all times or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the purpose was for that.
yeah. I
Do
think
you?
so. It's the outside of the building is three dimensional, and these concrete kind of waves that make the impressions of the building that you see from the ground up are actually the balconies too. So
Hmm.
almost every floor is different, and the balconies are different. And when you rent there, you have to go and you want to see, but they're moving. They're like waves. So everything is like an unusual space. Everything is different. So I guess she really likes the water, and I think those balconies cause the shadows. So it does kind of look like it's moving at different times of the day when the sun's going down.
Hmm.
Then she also
Yeah.
has the other building in Lakeshore East, which they call the St. Regis. It was
Hmm.
originally called the Vista, and then the
Hmm.
hotel St. Regis moved in there and got the naming rights. But that is the largest commercial, I'm sorry, residential building, and that's one of her other projects. And the glass on it and the shape of the building, they look like waves too. So she has some, I
Hmm.
don't know, waves and sea and water and aqua.
Yeah.
That's her
Yeah, and
thing.
there's another one that looks kind of like a mini version of that St. Regis, right? Kind of more in the South Loop that she has. I think
I'm
there's
not
another one.
sure. Not sure, but I do have a fun fact with the St. Regis. If you look up and there's one section of it has a big black box that they call the observatory, but it was really installed to help the building from swaying. So it's an open
Mm,
space. So I
Right.
guess you can go in there. I have been in the building. It's really beautiful. It's very high end. I mean, the St. Regis is probably one of the most expensive hotels. And it just got its first restaurant. So it's moving along.
Yeah, for the longest time, before I learned that fact that it was about, the aerodynamics of
Yep.
it, I would look up there and I would just be like, "Man, when are they gonna finally finish this building?" Why did they just,
Yeah.
leave these two, floors in
Yeah.
the middle
Yeah.
undone, But yeah, and then I realized and I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." There's so many cool ways that architects over the decades have solved the riddles of the wind, of
Yeah.
different versions of swaying, of space considerations, of air rights and things like that, where they'll
Right.
build it
Right.
tiny in the beginning, and then it kind of it sprouts out as the building goes up. I mean, there's all kinds of really cool stuff going on, but yeah, very cool. So how long what was some of the kind of the in between here of what led you to be in this neighborhood and in the industry that you're in? You said between Lincolnwood and now.
Sure.
What was
Sure.
the
Once I moved back from college, I lived in New York for 8 years. I
mm,
kind of fell into the restaurant industry and I started working at a French Vietnamese restaurant in the Gold Coast called Lake Colonial. Very famous, very unique. I stayed there for 9 years. And then I started moving along in my career. I worked at a couple of hotels. What's weird is that almost every place that I work at is close to where I live, not on purpose. I swear. I just have turns out that way and it's awfully convenient. So now I'm fairly new at Smith Wollensky Steakhouse. I've been here 5 months and it's probably a 7-minute walk. So that commute is just
mhm.
brutal.
Yeah.
So they're right on the river. So it's a two-story large restaurant. The lower level is actually at river level. We're just above it. We're right at the base of the Marina Towers, another iconic building.
Yep.
And they actually have a marina below us. So we can look out our windows and see boats like coming out of nowhere. And people are like, where did that boat come from? But what's really great, they've been here for 25 years. So for 20 years, they looked across the river at nothing but graffiti and garbage and homeless people. And my whole life, they talked about cleaning the river. And it took that long. So it took at least 20 years to develop that. And then 5 more years to develop the Riverwalk. And now it is the hotspot, like the jewel of Chicago. We're
Yeah.
right across the city winery. Boats can dock there. It's a public dock. So we get big yachts, we get small boats, kayaks, personal boats, everything. So it's a really cool view. And what's funny is people come in, I do group business. So we have 7 private dining rooms. Those are being renovated right now, completion for parade day. And are you going to ask me what parade? A lot of people.
Right. Yeah. Which parade? There's about a dozen of them.
Well, the parade on the river is the St. Patrick's Day parade
Sure.
when they had the
Okay.
river green. So
Yep.
we have a large event here that's already been booked. They signed basically before the completion of the construction, but they feel comfortable with us that our private dining spaces will be open and they're at river level. So you can literally see the river being dyed, all the activities. It's going to be super fun and really beautiful. We have a series of rooms in a row and they all have retractable walls. So you can take one space, two spaces. They're taking all the spaces. So we better be done with our construction, but we feel pretty comfortable it will be ready from
Yeah.
our take. Yeah.
Very cool. Are they retractable, windows and things like that too? Can you kind of do like an indoor outdoor or is it
No, the lower level has no outdoor space. On our upper level, we
uh
do have an outdoor patio, but it's set back from
yeah.
the river because you're too high. So what's funny is when the groups come in for these corporate events at conventions and things, they go down the stairs and they think they're going into the basement, like a dark room with no windows, and they're just blown away. It's kind of like the big reveal when we open the doors and they're like, oh, this is, something that you can't
Yeah.
really see from any other locations. So it's very unique. And I don't know if they thought about that when they moved in here 25 years ago, but they've been talking about it my whole life. So they finally made it happen. So
Mhm. Yeah, I was just asking because I know St. Patrick's Day to me is always just the ultimate trick or treat holiday. Well, aside from, I guess Halloween would be the ultimate trick or treat holiday,
yeah,
but in terms of weather, because St. Patrick's Day, I've had some St. Patrick's Day here where it's been 70 degrees, and I've had some St. Patrick's Days here where it's been like 28 degrees.
right,
Is just
right.
the ultimate, you just have no idea what's good. It could be
Yeah,
beautiful, it could be frigid. Regardless of what it is, people will treat it like it's a nice day.
right.
They'll figure
Yeah,
it
they
out.
feel wanted.
They'll yeah, exactly. They'll drink until they feel what they want to feel. But
Right.
yeah. Yeah, and that is a really cool event. If anybody out there is unfamiliar, just Google Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade, and that river turns neon green. There's
You
obviously a very storied Irish history in Chicago and things like that. So Chicago is definitely one of the cities, I would say up there with Boston, that probably goes the hardest. Time for the Real Estate Stats Corner, presented by me, Jake Lyons, real estate advisor here in the Chicago area with At Properties and my website, thechicagohomesource.com. In this section, I am going to give you two statistics about the Lakeshore East neighborhood that I think will give you at least a good general idea of what real estate prices are looking like and, just more importantly, what people are willing to pay to live in this neighborhood. I might be biased, but I think that real estate prices are super relevant to any discussion on any neighborhood because, after all, what really is a neighborhood without real estate? So, with that being said, the two stats that I am going to provide are the median sales price for two-bed condos and the median rental price for two-bed apartments. Normally, I would also provide the median sales price for single-family detached houses, but in this section, this is downtown, like right in the heart of downtown Chicago, after all. Zero single family houses like that to be found. So obviously, we will not be covering those. All information provided here is courtesy of InfoSparks and Rentometer, respectively. So the first stat, median sales price of two-bed condos as of the most recent data that I have available to me, which is January of 2024. The median sales price for two-bed condos in the Lakeshore East neighborhood was $549,000. So 50% sold for more, 50% sold for less. That's the median sales price. And if you are looking to rent a two-bed apartment in the Lakeshore East neighborhood, that will be a median rental monthly price of $3,800. So obviously there are a lot more variables at play here than just the median sales price or median rental price. We can get fully into the weeds on that if you want. Go ahead and reach out if that is something you want to explore. But in the meantime, if you want to see what all is available in the Lakeshore East neighborhood or anywhere in Chicago for that matter, you can go to thechicagohomesource.com, which is also available and can be found in the show notes of this episode.
So then in this construction, our company, speaking of Boston, our owners are based in Boston. So the first one was in New York. After that, they bought the chain. It's actually a small steakhouse chain in comparison to some of the larger ones, which is actually kind of nice for me. You get to wear more hats, I think, and be more involved. So they recently bought an East Coast chain called Legal Seafood. It's all over the East Coast. And right next to us was an empty space that was empty since pre-COVID. It had a restaurant called Dick's Last Resort that was very casual and kind of kitschy. They left. That space has been vacant. So our company has acquired the chain, Legal Seafood, and we're putting it right next door. So that's the first one. Will be out of the East Coast. That should open the end of May or June, is what I've heard. And I've been in there.
Okay.
The walls are going up, and yeah. So we've got not only our own construction, we've got the new construction. So we will be almost bridge to bridge for all the window space with the two locations. So it'll be super fun.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
that will have a small outdoor balcony.
Will you be sharing your time with the new restaurant then, or will your time still be mostly focused on the Smith and Wollensky wing of it?
Probably both. It's the
Okay.
game plan at this point. Yeah. Which would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's a little
exciting.
bit lower price point. It's a different look. It's really fresh and kind of almost like a new looking beachy, modern beachy kind of style. So
Mhm.
we're really excited, and they're moving quickly, which is great.
Sounds like the perfect spot for it, right there on the
Yeah.
river. I mean,
Yeah.
even though we're in the Midwest, technically landlocked and far away from wherever most
Yeah.
of the seafood is actually coming from, you're still on a large
Right.
body of water, so it makes you feel like it's appropriate.
Yeah. Well, they buy their own fish and all their seafood in Boston. They're processing it. So they have a super good handle on the
Mhm.
freshness, obviously,
I'm sure.
and the
Mhm.
quality, and they have the quantity. So that's why they can
Mhm.
do it at a pretty good price and do it well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's surprising to hear because I've lived in Chicago now. I'm from Indianapolis originally. I've lived here. It'll be 9 years this summer. So I pretty much only know the Riverwalk as a pretty nice, inviting place. 'Cause I think
Yeah.
they were probably done with that. I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, something somewhere around there, maybe even
No,
longer. I'm not exactly
it
sure.
well, but it kind of shut down, during COVID. So we lost a
Right.
couple years. They started it and it never really finished. So each summer, each season, they've been adding more and more and more. Even now, I can see closer as you're going east, they're redoing places. There was the
Yeah.
tiki bar, the tiki boats. That's all being redone. I see signage going up. So they're still developing it, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just amazing that you had this that it took them 150 years to figure out that you have this just awesome asset of a place
Yeah.
that, of course, everybody would want to hang out in if you fix it up, you know?
I,
I know running a city is probably complicated, and there were probably a lot of
yeah.
other things to get to before that, but still, I don't know. I'm glad they got to it eventually because it's a really, really nice place.
Yeah. Well, we never thought of growing up as the river was the place to go. I mean, it smelled, it was
Right.
dirty. It was, I mean, now they're swimming in it in parts of it, which is kind of shocking, but people are doing it. Not here in the downtown area because it's too congested, but in further up northern portions of the river, it goes east and west and then it goes north and south. So there are areas where they're swimming technically.
Yeah.
Or if you're on a small boat, you can do the whole thing. And some of the architectural tours go pretty far.
Yep, they do. They almost go up to, kinda like Goose Island area up that way. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
What was you said you were in New York. I'd like to explore that just a little bit if you don't mind. What part of New York were you in?
I went to college in Manhattan and I went
Mhm,
to an art school there called Parsons School of Design. And then I stayed for 8 years doing that, and, it was great. I came back to do the same industry for a company here in Chicago. They found me and brought me back, and I kept thinking, "This doesn't work out. I can always go back to New York." And then it did. That company, it's a long story. So I was in fashion design, but the company here in Chicago manufactured in Hong Kong. And I wasn't getting that
mhm,
experience from any companies I worked for in New York. So I moved back, and my second day on the job was on a plane with 16 people to Hong Kong. I think the flight was 17 hours. So, and we stayed for 3 weeks. So I went
mhm,
5 times a year for 3 weeks each trip in that year. And then the company kind of imploded and just couldn't sustain what they were building anymore. So
mm,
I didn't want to go back to New York and I took a bartending job. Took a
mhm.
class and then I got a job and I just got sucked into the restaurant industry. And here I am 20 years later. So
Yeah. What would you say your experience was of New York, you know, as opposed to I mean, living it seems like you've had pretty much the biggest doses possible of both cities, living in
yeah.
Manhattan and then right where you are now is you're obviously in the middle of as much hubbub with Chicago as you can handle. So what would be just sort of some ways that, you know, pros and cons of both, I guess?
Well, it was weird because after I went there from, like high school, I had never lived anywhere outside like my neighborhood in the suburbs. And, you get help when you're in college and you go into classes and they push you into different areas. And then I stayed. When I came back to Chicago, I never really knew the downtown area. I actually knew New York better.
Mhm.
It took me a couple of years to, decide where I wanted to live and what I wanted to do. And I just, came right back downtown and maybe I'm a city person. I guess that's it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
if you're talking about the types of
Mhm.
events, so, I think Chicago got hit really hard during COVID. I'm not sure why. I think because we're, winter based. We don't have that outdoor seating like any cities on the coast. Like Florida opened up sooner. It took us a long time. Our big hotels really got hit. They just couldn't get the employees and many people left the industry. So I kind of traveled around a little bit because there were no good places to work, or you took a job during COVID where you had to wear 5 different hats because they just couldn't hire enough people. Now, as I did go to Florida for a while, first quarter, I got referred to a resort in Isla Morada, which is the second Cape, 27-acre resort. I signed on for 3 weeks, staying in a suite, was room and board, helping in the events department there. I ended up staying 3 months. So I stayed the whole first quarter of last year in Florida. So now
Nice.
I feel like I'm retransitioning to winter.
Yeah.
Because I missed one. But now that I've come back, I would say mid-September, we got finally a really big convention came into town where they call it citywide. They take every hotel room in downtown Chicago all the way to Rosemont and sometimes even into the suburbs to come in for these conventions. I think it was 65,000 people. So since then, all of the conventions are kind of following suit. We have a really big one the day after Thanksgiving for radiology. I think that was
Yep.
65. And they just keep rolling in. We just had one for HVAC or heating and air conditioning. They're 55 and these people like to go out for dinner. They love our hotels. I joke
Mhm.
that I live in a hotel. I do spend a lot of time in the restaurant at the Radisson, but it's a
Yeah.
fun group. There are in the restaurants in all these multiple spaces, you'll get people from the outside, you'll get condo owners, you'll get renters, and then you'll get the people staying in the hotel. So you meet a whole different like group of people. And I listen to what they say about, how was your stay? And just because it's my
Yep.
industry and they love it. They think it's clean. They think it's, the food's great. They always want a recommendation. I do send them all on the architectural cruise. There's
Hmm.
many, by the way. I also worked on Navy
Hmm.
Pier, and on every architectural cruise, they're all a little bit different depending
Hmm.
upon how busy it is on the river. So these conventions are continuing to come. There we have the dental show coming up, auto show. So that's I feel like it's all back, and I think last year, I don't think the international guests came. Now they are. Now they're all coming back. So we're doing great. We'll be doing even better once our construction's done. But so
Hmm.
with that, it's big group corporate dinners. We also do weddings. We do small weddings. The rehearsal business is huge right now. We're surrounded by luxury hotels, and they're all doing huge weddings. And now they're
Hmm.
doing high-end rehearsal dinners. So we're all kind of
Yeah.
feeding off each other for this business that I think they're excited. They want to come down here. They want to see what's going on, and then we've got the river. So it's really
Yeah.
exciting.
A lot of good stuff going on. Yeah, for sure. What would you say, just, on a personal level, you living there, what would you say are some things that have surprised you about the area since you've moved in? And you can kind of, you can speak directly to Lakeshore East, or you can broaden it to sort of, I know Streeterville's not too far, just that downtown Chicago as a whole.
Well, you can't turn a blind eye to the crime. It does exist. People pretend like it doesn't exist. I always remind all these travelers and these conventioneers and that you really have to be safe. I think we're busy enough where you don't have to go down a street that no one else is on. Look for other people, you know, wear a crossbody bag, put it onto your jacket. I mean, if you do, I think this is happening in any big city,
Hmm.
but the neighborhoods are closing earlier for the most part, the downtown. We close early. Many restaurants close early. And the conventioners are shocked by that. They want to go out, they want to go out after dinner, and the places are closed because they
Yeah.
want their employees to get home safely. So there's still a lot of that. It's kind of like the post-COVID, problem, but I think we just have to work through it.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard that from a few different people, even up into some of the more northern neighborhoods and things like that. Like I interviewed somebody who managed the Green Mill for a while and things like that, and he was saying that, yeah, back in the 2000s, 90s, even not even that long ago, you could rely on that place staying open till 4 a.m. You got to kick people
Oh
out.
yeah,
Now it's like 11 p.m. and there's only a couple people left in there, and it's like no problem at all getting those out. So yeah, it
yeah.
is it
That's
is
the way it
interesting
was. We
that,
didn't. Well,
yeah.
yeah. So I think it's a very walkable area. I don't have a car. I don't really need one. I mean, I could rent one if I wanted to, so that I don't have to
Hmm.
pay parking. I'm like a 7 or 8 minute walk, and it's pretty incredible. There's several grocery stores around us in Lakeshore East. They have a huge Mariano's. Whole Foods is 2 blocks away. So they've built up a lot of this because these buildings were coming in. And Lakeshore East also has a huge dog park. I don't have a dog, but it would be
Hmm.
very easy to have a dog there because everything's available to you.
That
Yeah, that
park that Go ahead, sorry.
Lakeshore East, the park has only one street in and one street out. So it's
Yep.
very safe. You don't get random people driving through. They do have security down there, but you always feel safe. And then most of the people are residents, the majority of them. So they know each other. They know you from the coffee shop. They know you from all the restaurants. So that's really fun to meet those people and see your neighbors, which is kind of cool. So it's our own little community. And again, you can,
Mhm.
a couple steps, you're walking on the lakefront of Chicago, which I
Mhm.
do, which that's really fun and beautiful. We're a half a block from the Pritzker Pavilion. They have live concerts out there on the grass all
Mhm.
summer long. It's free. I mean, that's kind of incredible. The Harris Theater is right there. So I'll probably be going there. I like to go to a lot of
Right.
things. Yeah. So we're right kind of in a good middle area. Concerts at United Center are not that far away. Lyric
Yep.
opera is really cool. So, and the
Mhm.
museums are right here. So there's,
Yeah.
a lot going on, a lot that's walkable, ride your bike, divvies are everywhere. So yeah, that's what's
Mhm.
cool. And it is clean. And we're just waiting for that summer. So
Yeah.
if you've never been
Yeah,
here,
there's
come in the summer.
yeah. Yeah, and yeah, definitely it's not reliably warm until about mid-May.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
is Yeah, maybe. Yeah, no, the Grant Park, Millennium Park being right there, there's always all kinds of activities going on, like you said, the free concerts, and then even
Yeah.
even beyond that, I mean, there's movies in the park. There's always some kind of like
Yeah.
summer dance and just whatever. I feel like there's a dozen different random programs and things going on just all over the place. That
Yeah.
if you have your ear to the street, you can
Yeah.
what they are. But yeah, it's a really cool area. And that park, the park in the middle of Lakeshore East that you were talking about, the big kind of loop that you go down, it's so nice. I lived here for a few years before I even knew that was there. To your point,
Yeah.
it's for being such a prominent location in the city. It's so hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, I
which is
agree.
really cool.
It's down, it's lower level, which is kind of, it
Hmm.
was a very smart landscape of the whole park was very smart and creative. And I don't know if they realized how big it would get. Like there were originally like 3 buildings there, and then everyone just kind of moved in around it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
That whole area is so creatively designed. I mean, I couldn't even imagine the sort of the civil engineering that must have gone into, 3
Yeah.
levels of whacker and, just everything that whole area is just like, man, this place was a swamp, you know? Some people said this swamp right here, we're gonna build it into what it is
Yeah.
today and just made it happen. And the history of Chicago is just endlessly fascinating in that way.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some things to do? I mean, obviously tons of, kind of higher end restaurants, steakhouses, things like that, but are there any kind of like, local spots, hidden gems, restaurants, like shops, things like that in that area that
Oh,
you would like to
sure.
call out?
Yeah, in Lakeshore East, they have Ovly. It's a modern Greek restaurant. I know there's a few other Ovleys. There's a smaller one in River North, but the one here is very large. It has a gigantic upstairs outdoor patio in the summer. That's very cool, kind of hidden. I mean, I like to I call it over the river and through the woods to get back to Streeterville, where I lived for several years. And they have a little jazz club hidden in there they have this inlet behind the Illinois Street. It's like a dead end of the river. And along there are all these little restaurants and shops. Robert's Pizza is really famous right now. He won a bunch of awards. He's from New York, but it's been there for several years. They have an outdoor patio, and then they have a floating dock with more seating. You can step down to just to like maximize that. All outdoor. There's a Mediterranean restaurant called Pinched, all outdoor seating. So once it warms up, I think, the outdoor seating just blows up. They're very close to the Lowe's Hotel. They have a great outdoor patio in the summer called the Streeterville Social. That if you didn't know about that, you might see the activity up there from the street, but it's open to the public as well. And that building is also mixed use. So there's renters, condo, and hotel kind of all intermingling. They just opened a new bakery called the Paris Baguette, really known for everything. They have beautiful pastries, beautiful cakes. They're all being made on site. And you can look in the window and see the bakers decorating the cakes. Very cool. That just opened. And the big AMC theater is there. So if you want to go to the movies, go out for dinner, they just opened an English Indian restaurant called Monarch and the Lion, I believe. Or Lion, could be reversed, but that seems to be really popular. So I think people in Chicago want to go to all these new restaurants. I know I do. You hear about it,
Hmm.
you haven't been there, you feel like you're missing something. Still have Restaurant Week is continuing.
Yep.
They're extending it, I think, a little. Some restaurants, and then from there, you just kind of branch out. I was out with some friends last night, and they wanted to go during Restaurant Week to all the old school restaurants they had never been to. They're kind of doing like
Hmm.
their own food tour. So it's a really good deal, and it's very popular. So things like that. And then once summer opens up, every neighborhood has their own summer festival, street
Yep.
festival. So there's like 4 big ones that I have to go to.
Which ones do you
So
go to?
definitely the Old Town and Wall Street Art Fair that happens in
Yep.
June. I'll
My
probably
wife
do
will
the
be in the Wells Street. Actually, she's
Okay.
an artist. Yeah.
Oh, great,
Meet
great.
there. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And what does she do? What?
She is an acrylic painter. She does
Okay.
all kinds of figurative, abstract paintings of all shapes and sizes. Emma
Cool.
Lyons Art, if anybody wants to look her up.
Okay.
Very good.
Very
Yeah.
cool. And they'll
Yeah,
plug
she's
there.
she's been there. This will be her 3rd year doing that one. It's always one of the best ones for her.
Fun. Yeah.
Really great
I
one.
like the Randolph Street. It's usually
Mhm.
fun. Gosh, there's so many. There's some Greektown is a big one
Yep.
too. I like to hang around the yacht club does a race to Mackinac party before that big sailing race. So they're sailing from the Chicago Yacht Club to Michigan in one of like the most dangerous parts of Lake Michigan. So I've been told that there's like a mini Bermuda Triangle out there. So, and
Really?
if they get bad weather, people have died before, but it's
Okay.
all different sizes, classes of sailboats. If you want to take sailing lessons, you can go to the other yacht club, Columbia Yacht Club, and they're all like within walking distance. You can learn how to ride a boat. You could buy a boat, rent a boat. I mean, it's crazy what's going on along the lakefront and the river. So right now, I think it's all about the water. When I worked on
Mhm.
Navy Pier, people wanted a water view, and then all of a sudden, the river started happening, and people were like, well, we decided to go to this other restaurant for a rehearsal dinner. It's on the river, and I used to balk at that. Like that's not a water view, but now I get it,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think it's gotten much better. I mean, they did a great job with the Chicago Riverwalk. So very cool.
Yeah. If somebody were to come in and just and spend one day in your neighborhood, what would be the perfect way to spend that day?
In Lakeshore East.
Yeah,
And like
Lakeshore
like
East. You maybe bring, you can maybe widen that by a little
yeah.
bit if you want, but yeah.
I think if they're coming in the warm weather, which I would suggest you're somewhere in between and hope for nice weather, you gotta get outside. I
Yes.
mean, I feel like we wait 10 months for 2 months, and you gotta
Sure.
really take advantage of it, and people do. So I think
People
this
do.
summer, I think the maybe the restaurants will stay open later because people will wanna go out more. But if you can take an outdoor big concert outdoor on the lawn of Pritzker Pavilion, if you can pop into this little jazz bar, Winter's Jazz Bar, it's almost hidden. You can buy a ticket and get a great seat, but they also have a bar where you could just randomly walk in and sit at the bar. I mean, there's so many good restaurants on both sides of the river. Go down the Riverwalk. I would take a walk, a stroll on the whole lakefront. Take one or two cruise boats. I mean, you could take a boat
Mhm.
cruise and go on out onto the lake, and then you see the city from the water,
Yep.
which is really cool.
I haven't
And
done that one yet.
yeah, that's really fun. Some of
Mhm.
them will do both river and lake, but they have to go through the locks. So that
Right.
takes about an extra 20 minutes. It's kind of like our little Panama Canal, but
Mhm.
that's kind of interesting to watch the water rise and how the whole mechanism of it is pretty mind-boggling. Navy Pier has fireworks every Wednesday and Saturday night the entire summer. And they actually did fireworks in December too, every Saturday night. Was the first time we had winter fireworks, which I
Mm.
didn't even know about it. I just happened to be walking over the bridge one night. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I saw the fireworks and they're pretty great. Yeah. So
Yeah,
interesting
you never
things
wanna
like
you
that.
never wanna hear big booming noises when you don't expect them, right? But
Yeah. I was a little bit alarmed, like, wait, this is something I
yeah.
know, but it was just odd. And it's odd seeing them. It was kind of foggy out. It was just kind of a cool,
Oh,
different,
yeah.
people are stopping and taking their pictures as people love to do right now. So there's so
Yep.
many good spots. Architecture tours, just walking are cool. I walk past our Chicago Architecture Foundation every day. They have it's a
Mhm.
newer building right on Wacker in Michigan.
Nice
So
building.
they have fun exhibits there too.
Mhm.
But you got to
Yeah.
plot it out to, I think, when you're coming here to see what is happening at that time.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I saw in your form you said you like opera and museums, which you can definitely plenty of options for both of those
Yeah.
things here in Chicago. What are your favorite ways to experience those, and like what will be your ranking of the museums in Chicago?
Well, it would depend too on what exhibits are showing.
Yeah.
So obviously our prima donna museum is the Art Institute of Chicago. I like the
Nice.
MCA, which is modern. You can just go, I mean, then we have our whole museum campus. So you have Shedd Aquarium, which I love. The Field
Mhm.
Museum. You can go, there's just so many. The Peggy Note Art Nature Museum, if you wanted to go north. So Lincoln Park Zoo. There's just so many
Yep.
things to do. It's, you know, something for everyone. So if you were going with a group or a family, I think you could find, everyone's going to hit their spot and then there's shopping. So, but besides Michigan Avenue, which is, taken a bit of a hit since COVID,
Mhm.
State Street, very close to me, has become like a secondary shopping area, which, it has a lot of, I don't know, maybe younger stores, maybe not so fancy because most of the high end clothing stores went into Michigan Avenue as their huge flagship stores. But retail is tough. So they are kind of moving that stuff around. But a lot of them have moved down to State Street, which is very convenient and they're all in a row and you can just, go through there. I take the bus frequently. I think our train system is really good. So, if you are exhausted from walking around, you can take it just, from one end to the other.
Mhm. Very good. Yeah, we've covered a lot of territory already. I think I can just sum it up with just a nicest bottom line question here. So, bottom line, why do you think somebody should want to move to Chicago over some other options, and B, if they are moving to Chicago, why would they want to live in your neck of the woods?
I think it's fun. I think from what I've said, I'm pretty much a sociable person. I like to go out and experience everything. And I think maybe I got that because when I lived in New York, that was the thing to do. You had to see the latest show, the latest movie, the latest museum, because that's what people would talk about when you would go out. And if you didn't, you really kind of got like you felt like you're missing out, FOMO, fear of missing out. So
Hmm.
here it kind of just kept on that same trail. Those are the things I like anyway. But I went to the Madonna concert last night. Now I didn't, it was the
Hmm.
makeup concert from August when she got sick. I had not purchased a ticket for that because I just couldn't buy something that far out. I don't know what I'll be doing if I'll be busy. Anyway, I bought that online last minute, a seat, and she was amazing. So yeah, it's just crazy. You could do things like that on a whim. So I like that. I like to walk. I'm like an outside person, but I also like to go to like the latest restaurants and see the competition and see what's going on and like all different types of cuisine. So I'm usually out and about a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, it's nice being in a place where when the big musical artists or acts come through, it's like it's a big deal for them too
Yeah.
to be in Chicago, you know? Like I'm from Indianapolis and we would get big acts coming through, but it always felt like they were doing us a favor by
Yeah.
coming through, instead of like the other way around where it's like, people are like, "Yeah, Chicago, I'm here, I made it," like I get to perform in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
I always dreamed of this, kind of thing. So yeah, a little bit of a different vibe. Well, that's all I have as far as, the what does it feel like to live in Chicago part of it? Is there anything that I should have asked or that, you would like to expound upon more, things you'd like to promote? How can somebody get a hold of you if they're interested in reserving a room at Smith and Wollensky and all that?
Absolutely. I would go to our website if you want, if you're a bigger group and you were looking for anything from 10 to 400, that you could go into our website. You'll fill out an easy, very simple form, and it comes right to my system. Gets logged in. I can respond from my phone or my computer anywhere, anytime. So that's the fastest way. And I can
Okay.
look it up and see if your date and what rooms are available, and send that information with photos and menus from my phone. So that's the easiest way. Then we have your contact information and we can contact back and forth. We
Hmm.
have been really busy, knock on wood, because of our beautiful riverfront spaces. And we're going to get a lot of press, I think, once we finish the remodel and then open the new restaurant. So we'll be busy. So feel free to reach out, Kerry. And yeah, I'd love to speak with anyone or elaborate on anything we've talked about.
Okay. Sounds good. Carrie, thank you so much for your time and
Thank you.
sharing all of your experience and expertise about Chicago and your neighborhood. I know that a lot of people will for sure get a lot out of it. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.